Welcome and many thanks for joining us here at the National Association of Accordion and Fiddle Club's Virtual Honours Celebration 2021. I'm John Carmichael, but for inland revenue purposes, I prefer to be known as Ian Cathcart. However, having said that, was that not a wonderful musical introduction there? That was the committee band playing a cracking set of pipe marches, it says here. Anyway, to start the official proceedings of the day, please welcome the chairman of the association, Nicol McLaren.
Welcome to the 2021 virtual honours presentation of the National Association of Accordion and Fiddle Clubs. I'm Nicol McLaren, chairman of the association, and today is actually almost exactly 50 years since the inception of the association in 1971. So actually, I was looking through some of the early minutes, or the first minutes, and at the first meeting there were 8 clubs represented at the formation of the association, and I have to say the exec committee was like a who's who of musicians of the day. It was held in Perth. Chairman was Mickey Ainsworth, and present were Mr. and Mrs. Mickey Ainsworth, Mr. and Mrs. Jimmy Blue, Mr. and Mrs. Jim Brown from Gretna, and H. McKean from Straighton, Mr. and Mrs. John Loch from Langham, Abbey Park, from Dundee, Arthur Spink and Jack Cooper, from Newcastleton, Ray Milburn, who was the secretary, A. Atkinson and W. Porter. Dumfries was Max Hullison and Alec Little, Galston, Billy Stewart and Davy Ross, and apologies were received from the Mulgai Accordion and Fiddle Instrumental Association, the Mafia Club, from Bobby Harvey. The objectives that were set out on that day for the association principally were to encourage members to participate in the music and to visit other clubs, but more importantly to encourage and expand the talents of young up-and-coming musicians, and that is still our maxim today. Interestingly, one of the discussions towards the end of the meeting was as to when the next meeting should be, and the suggestion was that it should be held on the Sunday following the Perth Accordion Championships at the end of October. This was rejected overwhelmingly owing to the likelihood that the previous night's festivities would interfere with sensible discussion. No change there, I suppose, and we blame today's younger musicians for that sort of attitude. Well, there you go. Anyway, this, as we're all aware, this past year and a half has been extremely challenging to everyone involved in life, really. We've had no clubs, and I said no live music, no dancing, no box and fiddle for the past 6 months. But hats off to everyone who's actually kept us going online. We are now all desperate to get back to some sort of what we'd have regarded as normality and much more of a social get-together. After being forced to cancel last year's gathering at the Invercars Hotel, the committee have decided that we couldn't let another year go by without honouring the 3 gentlemen who should have been our guests of honour in 2020. And whilst we're going to have to wait to really properly celebrate 50 years of the NAAFC, today we're going to celebrate 3 men who have greatly influenced our music over those past 50 years. Mr. Peter Bruce, Mr. Andy Campbell and Mr. Malcolm Ross.
Thank you, Nicol. Well, before we welcome our first guest for the day, why don't we have a look back and see some of the past winners, if you like, of this award? Folk we have copied and framed our music on all over the years. Have a look at this and see what you think.
Jacqueline Waltz is playing in our dreams tonight.
My bonnie lies over the ocean, so bring back my bonnie to me. Bring back.
It's my delight, and it's not long, I know it's right. How the folks would get a fright if they saw me wearing trousers. Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. Through the streets and my kids are low. All the lasses say hello. Oh, where's your trousers?
What a lovely montage there. And I'm sure that's stirred many musical memories and places and people, you know, in all of us, you know, and especially those of us who attended many of these presentations. In fact, I can remember the very first one quite distinctly. It was the late, great Jimmy Shand. Now, until you got to know Jimmy, he looked kind of fierce and he, a shy man and all that. He was quite a shy man actually, but he loved a laugh, he loved the jokes and everything. And in fact, in his reply speech for the celebration, I do recall he pulled the toilet roll out of his top pocket with the notes on it to read them out. Oh dear, please spare my part. Good old Jimmy. That's it, as I say, many happy memories. However, we are moving on now, ladies and gentlemen, and we come to the first of our celebrity guests today. Malcolm Ross, that very, very fine drummer and percussionist, in fact, from over there in the East Coast. And you know, I was just reminding myself there actually, the first time I introduced someone by the name of Ross here at a concert thing, dance in Glasgow, it was in the Govan Town Hall in the 1960s. And it was indeed Lindsay Ross, Malcolm's father, who at that time had this wonderful broadcasting band, not just Scottish, they played all kinds of music. And we had him as a guest band for one of our big dances in the Govan Town Hall. And I also recall that at that point there was a television series running, the Maigret series. It was a detective thing from France, or allegedly France, and a lovely theme tune to it, the Maigret theme. And Lindsay played that for a waltz that night. Lovely tune, and the thing about it is many of you will probably know the tune. A nice tune in this sound. However, it's quite a tricky little bass thing that's been set up in it, and Lindsay just played that straight away and everything. And the fortunate thing was none of the Govan accordions had these basses on it, so we didn't have to bother with that. Aye. Anyway, moving swiftly on. On about Malcolm, of course, and I had the great pleasure of Malcolm joining me on a series I was doing for Scottish television called The Northern Nights. We did it from Grampian, and Malcolm came in and played quite a number of these, and he did a wonderful job in the percussion, accompanying the singers and playing in the band and doing all the bits, you know. And the one thing sticks in my mind, I'm sure he must be the only guy who played the bongo drums behind Alistair Fraser in A Mattress Being Real, who kept looking over, but he loved it despite that. Anyway, without any more ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear Malcolm now in Leonard Brown's band doing a wee tune called The Typewriter, and you'll see it's quite a complex little percussive piece, so take it away, Malcolm.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm with Malcolm Ross, one of our guests of honour this year. Malcolm, probably the most prolific and respected drummer in the whole of our Scottish dance music scene and the Accordion and Fiddle Club scene. Malcolm, congratulations, it's good to be here.
Oh, thank you, Nicol. It's a tremendous honour being given this award, and I'd like to thank those in the committee that put my name forward.
It's been a long time coming. It should have been a while ago, I think. So just, if I can ask you just a few questions. I mean, when did you first start playing the drums?
Well, when I was 5, there was a local drummer came to the house, Jimmy Bruce, he was his name, and because my father, of course, had the band, and he had a brand new mother of pearl Premier drum kit. And Jimmy was probably looking for a gig from my father, and he set this beautiful Premier drum kit up. And I was totally spellbound, and that night I went to my bed. That was my occupation for that point. And then the next birthday was the 6th one, and I got a snare drum. And then various drummers used to come to the house and give me advice. And I never really had proper lessons. And then I got asked to play at family weddings. My father would drag me along when he knew the people. And I got...
This is before you're 10.
Yeah, I'm only 6, 7, 8 at the time, and I remember getting paid in 10 shilling notes. Well, I got one 10 shilling note. That's 50 pence to all you kids out there. And after that, I was playing at another family wedding. It's actually Jim Sturrock, the fiddle player. And I get up to do a turn again. And I'm scraping away no bad at this point. And Jimmy Fairweather from Aylith, ex-Hawthorne. Jimmy said, oh, I could use a drummer. So I used to go up. This is fast forward to 1971. When I was 11, I used to go up Glen Shee.
Jimmy used to do a lot at Dalrollion.
Dalrollion, I played there. Aberfoyle, I remember playing there. All the kind of Perth there. And Jimmy Sturrock lived in Letham, so he just had to cut across to Freakham. We were in Freakham, right in the heart of Angus. And Jimmy would drive, and Doug Milne was in the band. And Bill Cormack from Blair. Now, and Jimmy, so if you could imagine these guys, they were salt of the earth. Because how would you let an 11-year-old with a bunch of fellas growing people, you know, but when you know these guys, they were just... Big
influence then. A lot of 6-year-olds get a drum for their Christmas or whatever, and, yeah, they just knock hellish it, and that's it. Did it make a big difference having the musicians coming round? Did you learn for them or listen to them? Or?
A big memory for me, when I was about 8, I think, when my father had a broadcast, and it would have been 4 or 5 in a calendar year in the mid-60s. And I was one of these kids that hung around like a bad smell, and there was nothing much to do in Freakham anyway. Oh, they were having a band practice, and I'm one of 4 kids. There was 3 others, and they were never really interested. So but I used to tag along, and just hearing that, the Lindsay Ross band in a wee room like this, was something special. That went in here, and I was watching the drummer and getting it, sort of learning it by osmosis. It was going in through the pores, really, you know. And
so was it? Did you develop a style by watching and listening to other drummers, or did you go to lessons to specifically learn different bits?
The Scottish dance band drumming, definitely. It was. We had Bill Jarvis was playing with my father, and Bill played in a certain way. He used to pick bits out the melody, which I still do, I think. And Arthur Eason that played with Ian Powdy and Jimmy Blue. Well, my Uncle Dave was with Andy Stewart's show, and I used to go up to Aberdeen, and Arthur used to tension up my drum for me. And Arthur was a phenomenal drummer, and Arthur was my hero, really, you know.
Of course, there was a lot of particularly Scottish dance music in the family, not just your father, Lindsay Ross. I mean, your Uncle Dave, you was Dave Barclay.
Yeah, there were. It was, and my family. I think the thing is, Davy Stewart, Dave Barclay, and my father and Angus Cameron. They were all really properly taught by fellas with letters after the name. You know, sometimes if you're brought up in a rural situation, you can often go to the local blacksmith for a lesson, and there's nothing wrong with that. But these guys, the guy that my father and Davy Stewart and Angus went to, were the fella had music published and everything, so they really were well schooled. It's not a snobbery, it's just a...
It's like, folk will say the drums are just rat-a-tat. But as we all know when we listen to you, Malcolm, it's no that.
Well, the drums, that kind of ethos about being taught properly. Well, after I'd played with Jimmy Fairweather for 2 or 3 years, my father thought I was proficient enough to join his outfit. And at that point, he formed a trio with 2 or 3 different guitarist vocalists in order to do a variety of gigs.
Aye.
And the Lindsay Ross Trio was really, really busy. And a quality work as well. My father was in a show in the Webster Theatre here. There used to be summer shows and stuff. There's a very famous trombone player, a Scottish trombone player, George Chisholm.
Yes.
George had he was a top jazzer in London, but he also had a kind of comedy act where he did pratfalls and things. And my father was the accordion player on the bill. And George did this thing with pratfalls, and the drummer was covering all this stuff. And my father was amazed to see, because he was reading drum music, and went across and introduced himself. And the fellow was Alan Johnston, who was a Glaswegian, but he'd moved up to teach in the Dundee schools.
All right. So did he teach you drum music then?
Yeah, the first lesson I had, he held up a piece of sort of snare drum parts, if you like. He said, "This will be hieroglyphics to you," and I was like, "Yeah." And I mean, I had a bit of music theory. Strangely enough, at Arbroath High School, I had a teacher called Geoffrey DeMarcado, who was a Mancunian who had played in the Halley Orchestra in
Right.
Manchester, and he'd left the Halley Orchestra as a violinist, and he went to Shetland, where he taught Willie Hunter the fiddle.
Oh.
And then once he'd finished being in Shetland, he moved to Arbroath High School, and I got him for theory. So I've had the same teacher as Willie Hunter. There's a strange one.
There's a
But I
strange
did
one.
meet Willie later on, and we put our heads
Reminisced,
together on that. Yeah.
So, coming back on, so when was your first accordion club then?
Well, it seemed to just fall into place for me at the same time, and it's a very significant year. It seems to be 1971. I passed an audition for the BBC and did my first Take the Floor then.
This was your father's band?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Well, I had to pass a separate audition. They recorded me playing, and then they kind of analysed it, if you like, and they said it was okay. So I was, it was 12 noon on Friday was the name of the programme. It was a kind of magazine programme. And I had to go off P7 to go home and listen to it, which was, I was still in P7 at the time. And I think the teacher actually played it to the class.
Right.
But she kind of agreed to let me go home and listen, because we had a tape recorder set up.
Aye.
And it was okay, I suppose, you know, but that was me started on that.
The bug was there.
It was there, aye, and it'll be 50 years I've been
Well,
doing...
that's the whole life of the
Yeah,
NAAFC.
yeah.
The first meeting there was in 1971, so obviously there'd been a few clubs before that, but that was
Yeah,
the whole
well,
thing came together.
The 71 was the first one I can recall with Angus Cameron and my father in the Queen's Hotel in Dundee.
Right.
And then following that,
That would be Jack Cooper and Arthur Spink that
I
was running it at that
think
time.
it was,
Yeah.
and I think then I can remember doing ones with my father where it was just me and him. Oban springs to mind because it was packed. There was 200 and odd folk at an accordion club, and I remember going to Rothbury in the summer and the winter.
Right.
So that was a wee bit later on, and then when my father died in 1980, I continued. I started doing them with Angus Fitchett and others.
Yes.
Bobby Crow, then Jim Lindsay, and then the younger fellas came on like Wayne Robertson, Stephen Carcray, and many others, Deirdre Adamson, Michael Phillip, yourself was
Yes.
in the band too, I think.
Yeah, there's been quite a few.
Yeah.
So, if you're playing with different bands, and as you say, you do play with quite a number of different bands, do you change your style with the style of the band leader?
Yeah, Scottish dance band drumming, I often get asked, could you not write a kind of tutor book with that idiom? And it's like I'm being guarded, but it's very difficult. There's a lot of difficulties in it for me. Like if you take a reel, for example, there's so many different types of reels. You've got a pipe reel, and this applies to jigs as well. You've got a fiddle reel, you've got a Canadian reel, you've got a hornpipey reel. There's 4 I can think of. Shetland reels, maybe 5.
Yeah.
But I think they all require something slightly different. Maybe a jig's a better example. So you take a tune like Tug Argan Gap. It's very jaggy and rhythmic in a pipe.
Yeah.
Then if you play Lady Mary Douglas, Miss Mary Douglas,
Aye.
da 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 dee, da 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 da, yep.
Yep.
That's a very lyrical tune, or a tune like that. So one you could also put words to, whereas one,
Yeah, but you've also got band leaders that will, their interpretation of that, of each of these, will be different. Again,
I think, I was just thinking actually too that the way my father required the drumming had a big influence in the style in the 60s. If you think all the fellas there was at that point, the drums was part of the band. It wasn't far forward in the mix. So then the drumming had to be, it kind of was there if you went looking for it with your ears, if that makes sense. But it was never really meant to dominate the music and be the loudest guy in the band.
I remember speaking with Jim Halcrow years ago, and he was talking about supporting musicians in general. You know, second box, piano, drums, everybody in the back line, if you like. And he said, it's often know what you do, it's what you didn't do.
I know.
You're there, and if you stopped, you would be missed, but you're not necessarily being heard all the time.
Absolutely. And another thing, I feel that every accordion player I've played with has got a different sense of swing and an inherent swing. Some people are very swingy and some people don't have so much of a sense of... But there is things I would do if somebody played a jig and the time feel was maybe a bit rocky. You can play a sort of a triplet bass, simpler pattern, and at least you'll get to the end of the road on time. You know, you'll get there.
Yeah.
Whereas some people carry an inherent swing. I noticed that early on. There's a huge difference between the way my father played, Bobby Crow played. Bobby used to come into our house a lot. And even was talking about Jimmy Fairweather played in a way.
You are a true musician when it comes to drumming.
Well, it's kind of less is more concept most of the time. Occasionally, I've recorded things when somebody wants the kitchen sink in, and like I think you have to be careful if you get asked to do a recording session. Sometimes that you just don't. You've got to put some kind of sparkle into it, hopefully, rather than just play simple route one as well.
But it's not just the kit we see here. I know you've got 2 or 3 more drums than what we're seeing here.
Yes, my wife will testify. There's 4 drum kits in the loft, and there's 12 snare drums and 5 bags of cymbals here.
5 bags of cymbals?
Yes, bags. They're all different. This is a wee practice kit. But I mean, I've done musicals like Jesus Christ Superstar, and that's a real drum-led thing. That needs cymbals from the 70s, Azulgians, that's one actually. That's the kind of thing you would look. But then if you were playing a musical like Hot Mikado, which is early jazz, 1920s a lot of the time, in the 20s the cymbals were much smaller, you know, so they had that kind of Charleston sound to them.
Aye.
The early New Orleans drumming, because they didn't have cymbals like this. So a lot of early jazz music's a bit like Scottish dance music. That was up until 1932 because they just had that, but then overnight the music went. And the music changed, and that was due to the invention of this.
That cymbal.
So,
no, Malcolm, it's been an education. It's been tremendous. I mean, I always knew you were involved with so many different types of music. We know you best as in our scene as a Scottish dance band drummer, but you're much, much more than that, and not just good. You're fully professional.
Oh, thanks,
and incredible at the thing.
The thing is about being involved in different styles. I think is. It comes from a point of fear with me, because in case someone comes up and says, "Can you play a samba?" then Malcolm as a person wants to be able to demonstrate it properly.
Aye.
And when it comes to this, I'm a bit of an anorak. I've got to kind of know the background to it and why you're playing something, and I've spent a lot of time studying these things, you know.
That comes across loud and clear, Malcolm. An enthusiast, a professional, the best, and I'm very pleased to present this to you this year as guest. Sorry it's a year late and we'll not have a proper party yet, but we'll certainly have one next year.
Thank you so much,
Malcolm
Nicola.
Ross, thank you.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Now, it's maybe just a coincidence, but we're swinging away over to the West Coast now for our next recipient of the award. We've had the East Coast, so we're going away over to the West and over to the island of Mull, and it's Anda Campbell. Now, Anda Campbell's from the island of Mull, but not just the island of Mull. Oh, no. from the Rossermull, the very, very finest part of the island, Benesson. And that's not just Anda's opinion. My late mother-in-law was born and brought up in Ardtun, which is in Benesson, and she told me that as well. So I believe it, and I'm sure you'll all believe it as well, ladies and gentlemen. Now, unfortunately, I was never a regular attender at the Argyll Arms Music and Entertainment Centre, which was based in Benesson. In other words, Andis Hotel in years gone by, and probably my body is the better for that. But I do recall going quite a number of times down to play concerts in the Benesson Hall and various other areas. And I remember chatting to Andy one night at the bar, and he was telling me that he was trying a revival to get an old music sheet going that had run for many years in Benesson. Yes, it was called the Benesson Bugle. Yes, and he was anxiously trying to get the locals interested in advertising and things in it, you see. So one of the days this old local crofter came in, he said, I want to advertise in your new news sheet. I want to help this situation out, but I am looking for help myself. So Andy said, okay, what do you want to put in? He said, I'll just dictate it to you. Can you take it down? So Andy's got the pen out, right? The old fella's going. Local crofter would like to meet young lady crofter with view to marriage. Second line. Lady crofter must have tractor. Third line. Please send a photograph of tractor. Now, I never really heard the outcome of that, but I'm sure he might have been successful. Anyway, without any more ado, ladies and gentlemen, who is better placed to give us a good set of Gaelic waltzes? Yes, than Anda Campbell. Take it away, Anda.
Good afternoon. I'm Ian Cathcart, and it's my privilege to be here today on behalf of the National Association of Accordion and Fiddle Clubs to make the honours presentation to Anda Campbell, a friend I've known for many years. Anda, I'm delighted to be here in your home today and looking forward to our chat.
Delighted to see you, Ian. Yeah, it's nice to have you in our company today.
We're here in Benesson, which is in the southwest corner of Mull. Is this where you were born and raised?
Yes, exactly. I was born in a house about 40 metres from the Gyle Arms for the first 5 years of my life, then moved up the hill to Millbrae, where I remained until I got married. Then we just moved up to the schoolhouse for a while, just a few yards up the road. But I've been here most of my life, yeah.
And I believe before the accordion you had a go at the guitar.
I did indeed. I was very keen on. I was a Buddy Holly fan, and then I liked Joe Gordon. Loved Joe Gordon stuff, like Joe Gordon folklore. And my parents bought me a guitar, which I tried to learn when I was a student working in their Gyle Arms in the early days, and he gave me some lessons, learned the basic chords, and I became a folk singer for a few years. Yeah.
And did you try any other instruments before you actually settled on the box?
Well, I wanted to play the pipes, as I think they've probably heard the story, and an old family friend, Cal McPherson, was a well-known piper. He was quite a big name in the piping circuit, and I went to see Cal and asked him would he teach me the pipes. He would be delighted, but he said, you'll bring down that banjo you have and we'll make a fire of it and we'll make a start on the pipes. But I couldn't part my guitar, so I never got my pipe lessons. I don't think my marriage would have lasted 50 years if I'd taken up the pipes. I think hell would me through it out after about 10.
Oh, I don't know so much.
So I think the accordion was probably a better bet. Yeah.
So Mull is well known for producing some fantastic musicians over the years. Bobby MacLeod, his sons Robert and Alistair, Callum MacLean and Pembroke Mackenzie, just to name a few. Was it seeing these local musicians that inspired you and influenced you musically?
Well, absolutely. Once I started going to dances in the north end of the island in my early teens, Callum and Bobby were both playing five rows at the time. I just loved watching them. It looked very interesting, and that's what made me turn to five row, give it a crack, and I bought one and I got a lot of help from Callum and just plugged away. I didn't read music. I only started reading music about 20 years ago. It was just it was a fun thing for me, but I enjoyed it. It turned into quite a nice wee hobby. Yeah.
And you've met so many nice friends through the years through the music.
Absolutely, especially through the Mull Music Festival. It brought so many great people to Mull, and you got very, very friendly with a lot of these great musicians. Yeah.
So back in the early days, what opportunities did you have to play in public, for example?
Well, there was lots in the local hall here with a Ceilidh dance every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday through the summer, which I played at those things with my father, and then Richard Hughes, my great pal from Tobermory. Richard came on his drums then, and we played the dances all over the island. There was lots of dinner dances in the winter time. It was great fun. Good social life in the old days. There was always something on every weekend. Music in the pubs and such like.
Music in the pubs.
Yeah.
I believe you have a story about an encounter with a famous footballer. Would you like to tell us that one?
Well, yeah. That was you got me there. I was playing a dance in Tobermory one night. And it was to do with the football club, and the Douglas Pumferson, I think, were the team that were coming up to play a Mull select, and in that team was the famous Jim Baxter, and there was a lot of all these ex-professionals were there, and they all came to dance on Tobermory on the Friday, and when the dance finished, we got invited back to the wee quiet drink, the Missions. Robert and his mum was there. And other than Jim Baxter and one or two other footballers, there was about 5 or 6 of us. And Robert had the box, and I said, just get the box on and have a tune. And I got the box on and started having a wee tune. And Jim Baxter says, do you ken Sleeking Them On? I says, yeah, favourite tune of mine. Well, give us a wee shot, son, play it away. So I started playing, and Jim Baxter started singing it. And he was a fantastic singer, and I was so proud of being able to play with Jim Baxter, not on the football pitch, but in the back bar in the Missions. It was a great honour.
Ah, must have been some experience.
Yeah, it was some experience. What a gentleman he was, and a fantastic singer. Yeah.
You mentioned Tobermory there. Was the Mull Music Festival a particular highlight for you in the calendar?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I went away there on the Friday afternoon and maybe get back on the Tuesday. Lots of stories. but get to the music festival, and even more so getting back home from it. But it was a wonderful experience, you know. I met people that I'd heard of but never ever seen before, like Sir Ron Ganella, Angus Cameron, Angus Fitchett, Arthur Spink. These folk, they were just the folk that came in. I mean, it was the cream of the country came up to Mull those days.
And little did you know that you personally would make such a major contribution to that festival and the Scottish dance band scene in particular. But let's start with the famous Argyll Arms Hotel. How did that all come about?
Well, there again, I was talked into buying that by the late Colin Finlayson, late David Flockart, and see, Helen had no experience of hotel work, but we thought give it a wee try anyway, and it worked out great. And then, of course, we started getting a few people come down to play there for the World Music Festival. It's kind of kicked off by Freeland Barber and probably Colin Finlayson behind it, and it started off as a one-nighter and gradually ended up Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was standing room only. In the end we had to lock the doors. We couldn't let all the folk in. It was so busy all these years. And as you know yourself, you were a regular attender.
Yes,
all these festivals. And not only the festival, we had the Raft Race in July. It was another 3-day event where all the musicians came, and Hogmanay, another event, and in between people just appear for a tune. Likes of yourself and James Coots would appear up from time to time. The famous Billy Maguire was a regular visitor.
Yeah.
Had some great times with Billy Maguire. Norman MacLean was a regular visitor. He did shows in the hotel, you know, he did these shows and brought a band up. He was there for a couple of nights. Callum Kennedy, it was Gabber Lindsay, the Clydesiders. I mean, we did other things as well as the Scottish dance stuff. There's other Scottish music as well, so it was good for the place as well. You know?
It certainly was. And how did Benesson become such a large part of the Mull Music Festival in these days?
Well, I suppose it was, I think the word got round, you know, we didn't advertise it, we were so busy in Tobermory, some boys weren't getting the tune, you know, and they all started arriving down, and then the punters were hearing about it, so they would come and stay here as well. So it started off very small, and all of a sudden, there it was busy, yeah.
Well, personally, I've got so many fantastic memories of my own trips to Benesson at the festival weekend. But for people who don't know about that, what was the format of the weekend in the Argyll Arms?
Well, we booked a band on the Friday night just to make sure we had a band. Quite often Duncan Black or Robert Black or somebody would be the band on the Friday night, and for the first part, and then when all the musicians arrived, Colin Finlayson would take over. Colin was the master of ceremonies. He just organised the thing for the whole weekend. Colin made sure he lined up accordion players. So you get yourself a band, and you had a list of folk who would do maybe a 20-minute spot, make sure nobody was missed, and this would go right on until closing time. Same again on the Saturday and the Sunday. So it was all everyone that came in, we got their names, and Colin made sure there was a band organised and everybody got a turn.
My memories were artist after artist performing all day and into the small hours of the morning and beyond. How often did you get a chance to strap the box on over the festival weekend?
I got the odd tune, but I just like listening to the guys playing. I mean, there's so many great players there. We just, like Sir Fraser McGlynn coming down. One time we had 6 or 7 Scottish champions there just on the one event. Fraser McGlynn, Richard Ross, Duncan Black, can't remember, Jackie Dick. There's a whole team of them there at the one time, you know. And fiddle champions as well, you know, with the lead fiddle champions, Angie, Judy, and all those people were all there. You know?
And were you aware at that time about how much encouragement you were given to young musicians?
Not really, no, but I just liked to get them, see all these young folk performing, you know, like Colin Dewar and all these young, well, yourself, all these young boys were coming on, Craig McCallum. We're all so young in these days, Alistair McPhail, Ian Anderson, just young boys, and all of a sudden they're Scottish dance bands 2 or 3 later, they all had their own dance bands, you know, but it was great to see.
And some of the stalwarts of the scene, like Dokie McCallum, I remember Dokie would play
absolutely
until the cows came home often.
Dokie would only come in to perform about midnight, you know, he'd be at his best. It's just good play all night, yeah.
And yourself and your wife Helen gave up the hotel in the mid-90s, and you still live happily here in Benesson. And you've managed to remain friends with so many musicians and enthusiasts from those days.
Oh yes, a lot of the bands still come back, you know, well, the musicians come back, Graham and Delane, Mitchell, Neil Angie McCaheron, Jacqueline Dick, and their husband Billy Rayburn, and Brian and Jennifer. They want Millen and Fiona still, and yourself, of course, still come back. And we still have Kayleys in the house here. You know, all my family come here. My sister Anne. Anne was a great singer. She was when the musical went in family as well. Although she didn't play it, she's a very good singer. So when these Kayleys go in and sings away all night, and all the family come over and join in. So we still have quite a Kayley atmosphere in the house.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah,
Keeping the music going.
Yeah.
So to today's honour, Anda, how do you feel about receiving this award?
Well, I was totally gobsmacked when I got the letter. As I said already, I thought it was a prank played by one of either my good friends Robert Hutchin or Brian Cruikshanks. I didn't think I would be getting anything like this, you know. But I did have a phone number, and Helen said she better phone. It was showing them what Faja phone showing, and she assured me it was for me. And I'm still. It happened. It was just before Christmas, 2019. Of course, it was postponed, but I still wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh, what's this all about? When you see some of the great people who have received this honour, it's just a fantastic one.
It's quite a list to be part of.
Oh, absolutely, unbelievable.
And finally, Anda, are there any special thanks you would like to make?
Well, of course, I'd like to thank the Association of Accordion and Fiddle Clubs. I mean, they do a great job, and we very often attend the function every year in Dundee to see someone being honoured. They've done a great job, and I'd like to thank the committee, yourself for coming up today. But of course, there's lots of folk have helped us on the way. Callum McLean was a massive support to me throughout my learning the accordion and even the years after. Mm-hmm. So many folk, yeah.
On behalf of all the musicians and enthusiasts who have visited Argyll Arms over the year, I would like to thank you personally and Helen for your kind hospitality, and also from the National Association offer our sincere congratulations on a well-deserved award. Well, Anda, it's my pleasure and privilege to present you with this fine accolade for all your hard work and your contribution to the Scottish music scene. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Ian. That's just unbelievable. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, dear me.
Thinking of departed friends always brings a sense of great loss and, of course, regret. However, I suppose it brings another sense of realism to what is going on in the world. Anyway, now we'll carry on back over to Nickel, and we're going to introduce our final celebrity for the day.
Okay, folks, I'm now with one of our guests of honour, Mr. Peter Bruce. Peter, it's great to have you here, and congratulations, well deserved.
Thank you very much. It's a great privilege to be given this award. I didn't ever think I was going to get this, but I'm more than happy to receive it. Thank you very much to everybody concerned.
When did you start playing?
The late 50s, when I was about 6 years old, I had a present from an uncle in Argyll of a toy accordion, and I think I managed to knock something approximating to a tune out of it, so I got a slightly bigger one, and then by good luck the family moved to the Perth area in 1960, and Mickey Ainsworth was taking pupils, so I went to Mickey briefly because he was touring with Powery, but he was a great inspiration to start with, and they made you want to play well, and was great help, and he had great, what nowadays would be called charisma, and he was a great inspiration. I had numerous other teachers as well. Two that deserve a mention, I think, would be Frank Thompson, who was a very good guy as well, and he moved to Aberdeen through his work. And after that, the principal one was Ian Anderson, who was a great... he passed away a couple of years ago but he was a great inspiration as well. And I played a lot of light classics with him. It wasn't just Scottish stuff, it was mostly light classics, which I would have rather played John MacDonald of Glencoe, but I think the grounding you got was very good.
Aye. What do you remember as your first gig?
Well, it was somebody my father knew. My father died when I was quite young, but he knew somebody, I think, from Aberdeenshire, who was having a wedding reception in the Queen's Hotel, Perth. I think I was in third year at school, and they asked me to come along and play a few things like waltzes and Gay Gordons. No amplification, nothing, just a 96 bass accordion.
Squeeze it as hard as you
gumption.
could.
And I have to say, back then I had far less by way of nerves than I have had in recent times. I just went and did it, and I think that would be my first gig. I would be approximately 15, I think, not long 15, I don't think. And the first gig I did with a band was Willie Simpson, and I can tell you the date, Friday the 6th of March 1970, and it was the Forfar Farmers dance, and it was, I think, 9 till 2, and it was a heavy night, and of course then I was extremely thin and fit, so I coped with it fine. A night like that nowadays would put me in coronary care, but they were doing dances like the Lancers, the Quadrilles, and ate some reel and all the other round the room dances, and it was 9 till 2 with a brief interval.
Yeah. I remember my father-in-law, late father-in-law, used to speak about you quite a lot when at the Highland Show, at kiss parties after some of the pedigree shows when the Earl of Mansfield had won.
Yes.
So I always remember Peter playing Duke of Perth and Earl of Mansfield till all hours of the night.
I remember these well, and there was a particularly memorable one at Harrogate at the Great Yorkshire Show, and that would be, I wouldn't like to put a year on it, maybe approximately 1965 or 66, and there was a great bunch of people there, and of course this was long after the public had gone away. It was a wee bit like a pub that has a special clientele who go in after closing time, and we had some great nights there, but I remember that one in particular. And again, that makes you want to play well, because people are showing appreciation, you see. So you say, I'll need to keep this up. And of course in the 1960s it wasn't terribly fashionable to play an accordion or a fiddle or anything like that. Everybody had a guitar. Nobody could play them, but everybody had a guitar. And it was fashionable to be like the rock bands of that era. So I was a wee bit different in that sense, and that remains the case today, that if you play a traditional instrument, unless you're maybe in Shetland or Lewis or somewhere in the north, you're a wee bit of an outlier. Everybody else wants to play a guitar, but whether that is the case or not is not always visible.
Absolutely. Over the years, can you name something that you would say is one of your favourite gigs, or your favourite one?
I've enjoyed doing some of the old time dances in recent years. Places like McClure and Rate and Forfar, it used to be the West End, but Kingsmuir Hall now, and you get a great crowd of people at them, and people who are definitely going out to enjoy themselves, and you know exactly what you're going to, you know exactly when you start and when you finish, and you know the dances, they give you a programme, and they're very pleasant, and there's no ill feeling at all. I've seen me at dances in the past, you get a wedding from hell and they come and say, what's the name of your group, mister? Can you give us some Black Sabbath or something? And I just kind of shake my head and say, well, you've got to be joking. But you feel like it kind of beam me up, Scotty, get me out of here. But I've enjoyed a lot of the old time dances in recent times, and I hope to goodness they do come back, because we've had 14 or 15 months. I had a couple of cancellations in March of 2020, and I hope to goodness people will get out of this terrible mess we're in and get back to them.
So, moving on then, Peter, I mean, you have been one of the most successful teachers of the accordion. I mean, I can think through probably the 80s, early 90s, where just about every finalist in the Perth Accordion Championships was one of your pupils. I mean, how did you get into teaching?
Well, I started for Wilkie's when I was quite young. They had an awful waiting list. People would buy an accordion for Jimmy or Karen or whoever, and then there'd be no teacher. And so they roped me into taking a few pupils, and I actually quite enjoyed it. And I was away at university for a while, but when I came back I took some more, and I really took them up till relatively recent times, but I feel I'm a wee bit out of touch with what younger people are playing now, so I don't do any accordion tuition now. But in a way it was success breeding success, because if you had a Duncan Black or a James Coots, who were great players anyway, with or without me, other people were saying, oh, we'll need to go to Brucey, we'll need to get him as a teacher. So you were getting people from a distance, like Stuart Cameron would be an example, Ian Anderson from Gartracarn, who were coming quite a distance, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. They weren't coming every week. But you were getting good pupils, and they would do well, and then you would get another batch.
On the back of that.
And it was just a matter of preparing them to play in festivals. And I used to try to encourage them to play other stuff, you know, like French stuff, continental stuff, light classics. But the main thing was Scottish stuff.
And was it feeling or was it technique? What was the sort of main thing that bolstered that? The
basis is technique. You have to get that right, but once that's right, you have to do an awful lot of other stuff as well. You can have the best musical ideas in the world, but if you can't get the right note at the right time, it's not going to be effective. So you have to have the technique, but there's an awful lot more to it just than pure technique.
Yes.
And most of these guys had a great message anyway. You didn't have to teach them an awful lot, because
and that's important through our type of music. I mean, it's a well-known saying among everybody that's involved, is to get the message across.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the message here.
That's right. Yes, from the heart. Yeah, that's right. I kind of think of examples of bands. A great favourite of mine is Alistair Downey from the early 60s, and he had a magnificent LP, and it was absolutely swinging, and you would hear wrong notes here and there, a bit like my playing, but you would hear wrong notes or miss-hits, but it was still a magnificent experience listening to it. And I could think, I certainly won't name anybody, but I could think of bands that are much more clinical and accurate, but it doesn't have the message, it doesn't swing.
Moving on then, Peter, you've been involved with the Accordion and Fiddle clubs really since the very start, 50 years ago. Now chairman of Perth Accordion Club and chairman of the Perth Festival. I mean, how did you start with accordion clubs?
Well, when Perth opened, I would be 17, and 1970. And of course, we all went along for the tune. And years later, in the early 90s, I got roped on to coming onto the committee, and I've been on the committee ever since. And it's an ongoing success. COVID notwithstanding, we've had some great nights, and there's not so many younger people coming along now. We had a group in the 80s and 90s, like the Cootses, Gilfillans. Ian Cathcart was in Dundee at university, and we had a great crowd of very good young players. And of course they're up and scattered now all over the country. And so we've got very few young players, but we've got a lot of very enthusiastic older players. I hope they don't mind me saying that. But we're still viable, we're still working very well, and we still have great nights.
Also with that, I was saying about the Perth Festival, I mean, when Bill Wilkie retired, you took over the mantle, the chairman of the Perth Festival, to keep the whole... And it was fantastic, because Bill had gone for, 70 years with the festival?
Yes, 60 I think.
60, sorry.
I counted it up in the car the other day. His tenure of the festival covered 12 UK Prime Ministers and also 12 US Presidents. So I think it was Harry Truman when he started it, and it would be Obama when he finished.
Yes.
And so he covered 12 of each. And it was a magnificent achievement, absolutely tremendous. And I was a wee bit worried taking it on for lots of things. And luckily we have an extremely strong committee. Simon's a great inspiration.
That's Simon Howie.
Simon Howie, yes. Morgan Brown does an awful lot of work behind the scenes. And special mention in the digital age has to be to Tom Orr, who did a fantastic job with the virtual festival. So these three people in particular, but everybody else plays their part. And I think it's successful. It's been a great success. I don't think we'll ever go back to the days. I remember one year in the 70s, Wilkie's festival had, I think, 550 something entrants, and we'll never get back to that. But we've got good entrants and a very high standard.
Yes.
Perhaps the standards are so high it intimidates some people into not playing.
That could be right. Yeah.
I mean, I've been in a hall the last few years just organising people going on and off the stage, and it's young competitors, and they're all brilliant. They're fantastic players. Goodness knows what they'll be like in 5 or 10 years' time, but they're great players.
Aye.
And I just hope there's work around for them to keep them busy as they grow older. They work very much at it now. They work much harder. I mean, I can remember in the festivals when I didn't win it, deciding what to play a couple of days before or the night before, and say, I'll play this year.
Aye.
And it was all a bit of fun. You didn't really terribly mind. You wanted to win, but it wasn't an obsession.
Yeah.
I think now the people are much more single-minded, and they work harder, which is a good thing, really.
Aye, there's no substitute for hard work.
Aye, that's absolutely right, yes.
So, anyway, Peter, for everything that you have done over that whole period as a player, as a band member, as a teacher, as a tutor of accordions, and for everything you've done for the Accordion Fiddle Clubs, I can only say thank you very much, and please accept this as the Bowl of Honour.
Thank you very much. That's very, very much appreciated. Thank you all very much. And I'm not sure that I deserve this, but thank you very much for the kind thoughts as well. Thank you.
And we'll have a proper party next year at the AGM at the Invercars.
Yes, that's. I've got the date in my diary already.
That's perfect.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, then.
Oh yes, a fine set of marches there from Peter Bruce and his 3 colleagues there joining in. Nice blend and beautiful tunes altogether. And of course, as mentioned previously, Peter's one of our most respected accordion tutors, and he's prepared so many young and older people indeed for the championship. I think he won himself, if I'm correct, back about 1976. I think in fact it was Jim Johnson judging that year, because I was in Jim's band and we played at the concert. And I think I was of some assistance to summing up the marks at the end, but I remember that. Great performance too, terrific. Well done, Peter. And as I say, always a great supporter of the championship, Peter. And in my own heady days of adjudicating, I think I adjudicated more first places that had been taught by Peter, just inadvertently, of course, than anyone else probably at that particular time. As I say, great supporter. In fact, I recall on one occasion being in Bill Wilkie's shop and we're taking some stuff down for the championship, and Peter came in too, so we're putting accordions out into Bill's van and things, you see, and this young lad came round the corner carrying a big heavy accordion. He was sweating and quite young, maybe 12 or something, 13, and he come up past us. He said, excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the City Hall? And without pausing for a second, Peter just turned to him and said, practice, son, practice. And that describes Peter's attitude, I think, towards the whole thing, including mathematics. Practice and you'll get it correct. Anyway, there we go. However, we're going to have another nice selection of marches from Peter and the boys. So over to you, lads, take it away. Well, that was a lovely, lively, full of harmony set of 6/8s there by Peter Bruce and pals to round off our celebrity selections for the day. And it's over now to Charlie Kirkpatrick, who has great words of wisdom for us.
Thanks, John, for that. Firstly, I'd like to say a few words about our chairman of the National Association of Accordion and Fiddle Clubs, the one and only Nicol McLaren. Nicol was elected as chairman in 2001, following in the illustrious footsteps of Jim Johnson. And since then he's led our association with great drive and enthusiasm, and he's constantly sought to maintain a high profile for our association and to further its aims. As a fitting reward for his dedication to our music, in December 2020, Nicol was inducted into the Traditional Music Hall of Fame at the annual Trad Awards. Now, because of the current situation, this honour did perhaps not become as widely known as it would have been in normal times. So today, I am bringing it to everybody's notice, and Nicol, I offer you my hearty congratulations on this honour, and I would ask everyone to give you a great big virtual round of applause.
Yes, Charlie, I join with you in congratulating Nicol and being inducted into the Great Hall of Fame. And of course, with Nicol at the same time, my good pal from up there in Wick, Andy Harper, was also inducted. So that's good on the two of them. Well done and welcome. And I do believe the great Simon Toomere has a word or two for you all. Here he comes.
I want to congratulate Nicol McLaren on his induction into the Scottish Digital Music Hall of Fame in 2020. Nicol has done so much for Scottish music. I mean, primarily, he's a foot soldier for dance music. He's never stopped playing for many years. He's round the clubs, given his music, he records, making so many beautiful records. And I know I've learnt tunes from him, and actually just being there to let people hear the music, let people to dance the music, and that's not easy, and the music needs foot soldiers. We can't all be sitting in offices. So brilliant, Nicol, and I know that you're nowhere near stopping. And of course, you have been a supporter of the Scots Trad Music Awards since the very start. I was sad for you as one of our regular party goers in December, to the 1 year that you're inducted, that there was no party for you to celebrate. But we'll make sure that changes. So thanks again, Nicol. I mean, of course, the work that you've done with the association is amazing. You've guided the organisation over many years, and it's not an easy job to keep going month after month. So thank you for your service. Thanks for your service to the organisation. Thanks for your service for music. It's really appreciated. And hopefully we'll see you this December in wherever the Scots Trad Music Awards are. Thanks again.
And now, over to Charlie Kirkpatrick for a comprehensive vote of thanks, as he used to say at the Tobermory Games. Charlie.
It falls to me now to propose a vote of thanks to all those folk who have helped to make this virtual celebrity celebration such a great success. It's been a great pleasure to have with us our three guests of honour, namely Malcolm Ross, Anda Campbell and Peter Bruce. I thank them for not only agreeing to become our guests of honour, but for their heartfelt acceptance speeches, and also for the brilliant music that they provided. And I'm sure some of you will have noticed the cameo role played by Graham Berry's dog when recording the music for Peter Bruce. I think the dog obviously doesn't like playing in three flats, and let me tell you, she's not the only one. Thanks are also due to the Executive Committee of the National Association, firstly for agreeing to hold this virtual celebration, and also for being part of the committee band, and I hope that you all enjoyed the music. I would like to record my appreciation for the support given to this project by Jennifer Cruikshank and Gary Innes of the BBC Radio Scotland Take the Floor programme. It really is great, the support that they give to the association at all times, in fact. To assist me in putting this project together, I had a very hard-working subcommittee of Nicol McLaren, Ian Cathcart and Scott Band. And I'm sure that Nicol won't mind me saying that really the brains behind everything were Ian Cathcart and Scott Band. Their skills are immense. And they were ably assisted in this by Ross Wilson, whose IT knowledge proved invaluable. Ross is actually the nephew of Anda Campbell and is perhaps better known in music circles as a member of the group Tidelines. Our thanks are due to them all, and also to Marie Martin, who provided great assistance with the artwork. Linking everything together in his own inimitable manner was my ancient trusty Druthie crony, John Carmichael. Thanks, John, for everything. Thank you. Well, we hope that this will be the last virtual celebration that we will have to hold, and hopefully everything will be back to normal by the time we meet again next year on the 26th of June 2022 at the Invercars Hotel. In the meantime, we look forward to the clubs opening up again in the not too distant future, when it's safe to do so, and also when government guidelines permit. So, could I ask you to stay safe. Now, John, have you been checking your diary for all the gigs that you're going to get?
You're asking about the diary, Charlie? Oh yeah, well there are 1 or 2 dates in the diary, mainly for hospitals, clinics, doctors, examinations, yeah. I don't know about the real stuff. However, having said that, we're drawing to a close here, folks, and I'd like to thank everyone here for taking part. It's been wonderful fun, great the virtual thing, and thank you all for looking in. And please continue to look into anything you see, like music especially. Meanwhile, Charlie, I think you should be heading over there and getting the good old trusty Marino strapped on and lead us out with the giant Stramash. Till we see you again, all the very best, folks. Bye. Bye.